So thank you again to Professor Maria Staheja. I also would like to extend a thank you to the core for providing us with this forum where we can share with you the research, some of the research that's being conducted at Católica-Lisbon. It is vital for us, and I would like to highlight the support from Delta and Geronimo Martins. And I also wanted to extend a special thank you to you who took time from your busy schedules to come here and listen to us and talk with us and interact with us. We do this because of you. We do this for you. And we do so because we believe that you are the ones who can go out there and put the knowledge that we generate into practice, in make important decisions that can make meaningful impact in the life of consumers and, of course, your employees as well. If we listen to what Professor Maria Staheja told us, people are telling us that their mental health, that their emotional health is really at the top of the list in terms of what their priorities in life are right now. Considering this, we business people ought to ask the question, how is it that I can water that plant that we call psychological health? Or for simplicity, we refer to this in everyday language as happiness. How can I make my consumers and my employees happier? Today, the goal is to share with you 3 tools, actionable tools that you as managers, as business people can put into practice and make the lives of your consumers and your employees happier. These tools have to do with how you might design your product, and we come at this from a definitional perspective. We look at how happiness is defined from a hedonistic perspective and from an eudaimonistic perspective, and we look at how those two might guide the way that we design our products and our brands and our communication with consumers. The second tool has to do not with how we design our products, but actually the behaviors that we might motivate and facilitate our consumers to engage in. What types of behaviors that if our consumers engage in, they will be happier individuals. We're going to talk about generosity and gratitude. And third, we know that happiness might reside somewhat in the heart, but really, a lot of happiness also resides in the mind. So if we can influence the way consumers see the world, we might help them become happier consumers as well as happier employees. I'm going to share these 3 tools with you today. Let's go to tool number 1. And let me put you to work a little bit. If you can please think for about 5 seconds what you think happiness means. I imagine you've thought a multitude of things. Happiness is a complex construct. When we think of happiness, a well-accepted definition, notice that I said a, not the, because there are various definitions. One well-accepted definition is that happiness is a sense of subjective well-being. It's a notion that life is going well, life is good, and that life has many positive situations and emotions. There are 2 main schools of thought when we think of happiness. One of them is the hedonistic school. And I know this is a little bit philosophical. We're going to get into the more practical part of this when we get through the philosophical one. So there's this notion of that happiness comes from having more pleasure in life and less pain in life. You can even think of this as a mathematical form. You get the happiness that you get, the pleasure that you have, you subtract the pain that you have in life. If after the equal sign, you have a plus sign, you have a positive sign, great, you're happy. If not, unfortunately, not so happy. The other definition of happiness comes from eudaimonism. The idea that we as human beings are not just pursuers of pleasure and avoidance of pain, we also want meaning in life. The notion that we want self-realization. We want to invest our capacities and our abilities to grow and develop, to grow intellectually. We want to learn. We want to be wiser, to grow socially. We want to develop healthy and harmonious relationships with others. If we feel that we're using our potential to the max for something that's meaningful, according to eudaimonists, That means happiness. All right, great. A lot of philosophy here. Let's get into practice. How can we operationalize this? Can you design products thinking of the product as hedonic or thinking of a product as being more eudaimonic? I'm going to go into one example to illustrate this point to you. We can think of cruise lines, for example. I speak of this with some level of certainty that if I asked you to think about what comes to mind in terms of what people do when they are in a cruise ship, I'm pretty certain that you would probably picture people maybe sunbathing, maybe dancing, listening to music, watching concerts, maybe eating, getting a massage. Yes, cruise lines were originally designed with hedonism in mind. They're about the five senses and getting pleasure into the five senses. Carnival understands this, not only the way that they design the product or the experience, if you want to think of it that way, but also the way that they design their brand, their logo. Look at this. They say Carnival, fun for all that they do is for fun. This is about pleasure. Look at the mixture of colors that they use here and how they arrange the colors. The colors are sort of dancing, moving from one to the other. There is switching of color. This is supposed to be playful. Not only that, the tagline is all in caps. We're yelling here. We are allowed to. This is freedom, playful, pleasure, color. Now, can you design a cruise line that is not hedonic, but in fact, eudaimonic? It's about meaning, growth, learning. Yes, you can. In fact, Carnival itself acquired in another cruise line called Fathom, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, and you don't see anything about fun here, you see impact. The reason is, if you go into one of these ships, you're not going to spend much of your time eating, dancing, and getting a massage. You're actually going to spend a substantial amount of time learning. Learning what? New skills. Like what? Like learning how to build new houses or to rebuild houses. But what is that for? These ships, they don't go to Disneyland. They go to countries that are prone to natural disasters, such that when they land, people leave the ship after having learned some new skills, having grown in terms of their intellect and skills. They leave the ship and they go build houses that were previously destroyed by natural disasters. They want to do good not only to themselves, but to other people. This is about purpose, intention, and meaning. So there we have it. Our tool number one really draws on these two perspectives of hedonism and eudaimonism to help us shape and think about, give us a framework on how to design and communicate through our brand, logo, and so on about these two ways to advance happiness in consumers. I do not mean that either way is a better way. In fact, research shows that eudaimonism and hedonism are similarly good in advancing consumer happiness. Let's now move to our tool number two. And we might think about where our happiness comes from. What determines whether you and I are happy people or not? There is plenty of research on this, and a lot of the research falls in these four categories. Part of our happiness comes from our genetics, what our mom and dad gave to us. And really, I mean, we know how to change genes to make people healthier, physically healthier in life, but we don't quite know how to change genes, at least yet, to make people happier in life later on. So we have little control of our genes in terms of our psychological health. Personality traits, are you an extrovert, introvert? What is your self-esteem, high, low? Those also seem to have an impact on our happiness. Life circumstances, are you married, single, how much you make? Are you healthy? Those things also seem to have a level of influence on our happiness. But as you can see, these three factors, we don't have much control over them. We as managers, or if you want to think of marketing managers, or any type of manager really. But we do have control. We can influence what our consumers and our employees do. So let's focus on the behavioral factors here. I want to discuss with you two types of behaviors that have been shown to be potential influencers of happiness. One of them is the expression of gratitude. When we express gratitude, two things happen. One is because we recall the good thing that somebody did to us in the past, we're essentially bringing up to the forefront of our attention that good thing that was done to us in the past. And that's good. That makes us happy again. But not only that, when you express happiness to somebody, you're also making that person happier because now they're feeling that they had a positive impact on you. And because of that, it strengthens your social ties with that person. As we know, social ties are a critical element behind being a happy person. The second productive behavior in being happy has to do with altruism, or being generous to other people. Some researchers, Dunn and colleagues, what they did was they gave $5 to some people, $20 to other group of people, and they instructed these people to either spend the money on themselves or on somebody else. So you go out into the real world, you buy a cup of coffee for yourself, or you buy a cup of coffee for somebody else. At the end of the day, they measure everybody's happiness. What do they find? Maybe contrary to some of our intuition, they find that, yes, spending money on ourselves makes us happier. I mean, most of us would intuit that way. But perhaps surprisingly, spending money on other people actually make us even happier than on ourselves. And it doesn't seem to matter how much money you spend, whether $5 or $20. We don't know if you extrapolate to other levels of money, amounts of money, but in terms of the research, this is what it shows. The amount of money doesn't quite matter, but it seems that spending on others, being generous, makes you happier than spending on yourself. Now, you might ask that question again. All right, great. This knowledge seems useful. How can I put it into practice? Can you show us an example of a firm that has put this into practice fruitfully? I'm going to show you an ad or a campaign, a short campaign by Milka. I'm going to show you only part of this video, but I think it illustrates quite well. I'll invite you to keep in mind the ideas of altruism and the ideas of gratitude. I'll stop in the middle for the sake of time for information. So let's take a quick look.
How to communicate Milka's brand message, Dare to be Tender, to our consumers. Our answer, let's make people actually experience the brand message instead of just communicating it by using the product itself as the main media. How? Well, everyone knows that the best square in a chocolate bar is by far the last one. So to really test people's tenderness, we did something unprecedented. We took the last square out of every Milka bar to give people the choice to claim it back or to send it to someone they care about. To activate this idea, a TV commercial and a tender digital campaign were created. They're aimed to lead people in-store, playing on both the inside and the unique product and packaging design. From the package, people were sent to lederniercarre.fr, asked to insert the code printed on the pack and decide if they wanted their last square back or if they wanted to send it to someone else. If they chose the latter, they were given a chance to write a tender message to go with their gift. A simple product change that created a truly engaging experience for the consumer.
All right, so a truly engaging experience for the consumer. I'll stop here for the sake of time, but you get the gist of it. Instead of consuming the last square yourself, you generously send it to somebody else, and we know what's going to happen when that person receives that piece of chocolate. They might eat it first, and second, what might they do? They'll probably give you a call and say, thank you. Altruism and gratitude within the same campaign. I find this to be a beautiful example of a good understanding of what the psychological motivations of the human being are and using them for the good of the consumer to increase consumer happiness. Now, Leslie, I'll share with you the idea that a lot of our disposable income really goes into buying one of two types of purchases. One is material things. The other one is experiences. There is mounting evidence showing that when we spend money on experiences, we gain more happiness than if we spend money on material things. Now, the interesting thing here is, and this is the implication for managers, is that really a lot of the purchases might fall into the very extreme of material things, like a fire extinguisher or a clock. Yeah, these are material things. They're tangible and concrete. Some of the purchases are actually pure experiences, but a lot of the purchases that we make are sort of in the middle, such that you